When it comes to troubleshooting drivability or starting problems on today's high-tech carbureted vehicles, a lot of people figure that, hey, there's too many hoses or wires, so they don't want to work on them. But with a few of the right tools and our help, you can. That's what Car Care Seminar is all about, saving you money by helping you learn how to perform the repairs on your own vehicle the right way and the safe way, the first time and every time. Hi, I'm Scott Cusey, and I'll be your narrator and host as we take a look at troubleshooting and repairing performance and starting problems commonly experienced with carbureted vehicles. Now, troubleshooting drivability problems used to be pretty easy and straightforward back when I started working on vehicles. Of course, that was when mechanical fuel pumps, non-feedback carburetors like this, and even point-type ignition systems were popular. But today's highly advanced and electronically controlled vehicles pose a new challenge for all of us. But you know, it's not a challenge that we can't overcome. It just seems like the hardest part is either knowing where to get started or where to locate the information that you need to perform the task. As I just mentioned, this videotape will cover identifying and repairing drivability problems normally experienced on carbureted engines, both new and old. During this chapter, I'll briefly discuss the topics that we'll cover and introduce you to the tools that you will need to perform the repairs described. In Chapter 2, we'll begin our series of chapters that cover drivability or starting problems commonly encountered with carbureted engines, specifically choke pull-off testing and replacement. In Chapter 3, we'll look at inspecting the choke thermostat along with replacing and adjusting the two most common styles. Another carburetor part that can cause loss of power and fuel economy is the power valve circuit. Now, during Chapter 4, we'll look at diagnosing power valve circuit failure and how to repair it. In Chapter 5, we'll look at the carburetor circuit that allows you to take off from a stop sign, specifically the accelerator pump circuit. In the late 70s and early 80s, vehicle manufacturers began a decade of computerized carburetor controls, commonly referred to as feedback carburetors. The reason they were referred to that way is because they used a couple of sensors to feed information back to the onboard computer, and the onboard computer also controlled certain actuators contained in the carburetors. One of the actuators used that was controlled by the onboard computer was the mixture control solenoid. In Chapters 6, 7, and 8, we'll explore testing, replacing, and adjusting mixture control solenoids. During Chapters 9 and 10, Jim Bates will join us to discuss testing and replacing throttle position sensors, which are common both to carbureted and fuel-injected vehicles. The final chapter, in which we'll concentrate solely on carburetors, is Chapter 11, during which we'll completely disassemble a carburetor, rebuild it, and readjust it back to factory specifications. That pretty much wraps up the areas we'll be discussing on this tape. So now let's talk about the tools that we'll be using to perform the testing and replacement portions. Now, everybody pretty much realizes you'll need a good selection of basic hand tools to work on your vehicle. Now, some examples of that include combination wrenches, both metric and standard, a good selection of pliers including locking pliers and needle nose type, 1/4-inch drive and 3/8 drive shallow and deep well socket sets, again both metric and standard, a torque wrench, a hammer, some punches, and a rubber mallet, Phillips and flat blade screwdrivers, one of my favorites, a magnetic screwdriver and a selection of bits, a pair of safety glasses, a set of metric and standard tubing wrenches, some shop towels and hand cleaner for cleaning up afterwards, and a drain pan, some funnels, and a gas can. You'll also need a few basic shop-type chemicals, including thread lock adhesive, some carburetor parts cleaning solution, and a spray-type carburetor cleaner. Now let's look at some of the more specialized tools you may need. Torx bits are becoming a popular type of fastener for a lot of different items on today's vehicles. So you'll most likely need a set of Torx bits that I suggest you get from size 10 through size 50. For General Motors carbureted vehicles newer than 1980, you'll need some of these special tools for making fine-tuning adjustments either during a carburetor overhaul or even during an engine tune-up. Now, another couple of common troubleshooting tools are a hand vacuum pump and a handheld vacuum pressure tester. We'll use those to check vacuum diaphragms and vacuum-related switches and relays. You'll also need a handheld digital volt-ohm meter for testing the electrical circuits involved with your carburetor, and a tach dwell meter for final carburetor adjustments. A digital multimeter like this one has all of those options built right into it. It's also a good idea to have around some jumper or test leads. And one of the most important items any mechanic has to have is the correct service manual for the particular vehicle they're working on. One of the best you can buy is a Haynes manual, because they deal specifically with the disassembly and reassembly of your particular car. From specifications to detailed instructions and illustrations, you'll find just about everything you need to know about your vehicle in one of these. Well, that pretty much wraps up our tool selection. Now, the topics demonstrated on this tape are typical examples of carburetor repair procedures being performed on common vehicles. For details on the procedures for your particular make, model, and year, once again, a Haynes manual is the way to go. And the best place to pick one up is, of course, Champion Auto Stores, as they carry a complete line of Haynes manuals right in stock. I'd like to thank you for choosing Car Care Seminar and for giving us the opportunity to help you learn more about your carburetor. Before you start your next project, check to see if there's a Car Care Seminar tape to help you do the job the right way, the first time, and every time. Now, let's get started with our first repair.
Whether your vehicle is computerized or not, if it's equipped with a carburetor, there are two important items that must work properly together to help your vehicle start quick and remain running during cold weather conditions. Those two items are the choke thermostat and the choke pull-off or vacuum brake. Let's talk about choke pull-offs. They are located underneath the air cleaner on the side of the carburetor and are connected to the choke blade via linkage on one end, and on the other end there will be a vacuum hose attached. Its duty is to slightly open the choke blade on initial engine startup to prevent an over-rich fuel condition. Symptoms of a choke pull-off that has failed include an engine that starts and immediately stalls, rough engine operation right after initial startup, and black smoke from the tailpipe during cold engine operation. On the other hand, a misadjusted choke pull-off, one that opens the choke blade too far after initial startup, would cause engine stalling when cold and a hesitation on acceleration during the engine warm-up period. If you suspect your choke pull-off is not working, the first step is to perform a visual inspection to make sure the vacuum hose is connected and in good condition, and to be sure the linkage between the pull-off and the choke blade are actually connected. If both areas appear all right, then start the engine and watch for movement of the pull-off. No movement indicates a defective pull-off. Another method for testing and adjusting a choke pull-off is to use a handheld vacuum pump. Simply connect the hand vacuum pump to the choke pull-off and apply 20 inches of vacuum. Once again, the pull-off should move and hold vacuum. If the hand vacuum pump does not hold vacuum and the pull-off does not move, replace the pull-off. Some pull-offs have a small bleed hole on the backside that must be covered with a piece of tape or your finger during testing. To replace your choke pull-off, you will need a magnetic screwdriver, a needle nose pliers, and a Haynes manual for your particular vehicle. First, you'll need to remove the air cleaner to access the pull-off. Make sure to mark or note the location of any hose connections that lead to it before disconnecting them. Next, remove the mounting screws from the old pull-off. This is when the magnetic screwdriver comes in handy. Carefully remove the pull-off while disconnecting it from the linkage. Take your time so as not to disturb or bend any linkages during removal. Many choke pull-offs have a bracket that must be transferred to the new part. Remove the pull-off from the bracket if so equipped. When purchasing a new choke pull-off, it is often a good idea to have the serial number from the carburetor or the old one along with you. Compare the old and new pull-off to be sure of correct replacement. If the old pull-off was earlier removed